order, ladies and gentlemen, if you please take your seats. What an awesome crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Mark Latham. I'm one of the JROTC instructors here at Ohio County High School, and on behalf of Mr. Decker and the entire staff of OCHS, I want to welcome our veterans and thank you very much for joining us today. You may want to get used to that. There may be some more applause coming later. But seriously, veterans, we thank you very much for coming. We're glad to see such a large crowd today. And some folks have the mistaken impression that this is for only parents of high school students, but it's not. And we know that the elementary schools all do their own programs, and we want you to attend those as well. But we wanted to make sure that everybody, every veteran in Ohio County has a place to be on Veterans Day. And we're very, very happy you chose to be with us today. And please come back next year. I'm going to sit down in a second. I'll close this thing out, but I want to hand this ceremony off to the young people who are going to run the show today. Ready to go, Cody? Okay. I must start off with a brief video to set the mood. It's a speech from former President Ronald Reagan called "The Soldier's Pledge." And you may or may not agree with all of President Reagan's politics, but there can be no doubt the man could lay down a speech. Mr. Love, get the lights, please.
If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, "My Pledge," he had written these words: "America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone." We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it, now or ever. We are Americans.
We'll begin today's ceremony with a presentation of the colors in our national anthem. Veterans may render the hand salute or render whatever honors they deem appropriate. All others should stand respectfully with their right hand placed over their heart during the national anthem. Colors! Colors! Vice Admiral Jan Tile was born in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and raised in Plantation, Florida. In April 2014, she assumed duties as the commander, U.S. Fleet Cyber Command, U.S. 10 Fleet, making her first female commander of a numbered fleet in U.S. Navy history. Admiral Tye is a 1984 graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, from which she received a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics. She is also a distinguished graduate of the Naval Postgraduate School. receiving a master's degree in applied mathematics, as well as a PhD in electrical engineering in 2001. She also studied Russian at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. Admiral Tai earns Naval Aviation Observer wings while deployed aboard an EP-3E aircraft in the Persian Gulf during Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. She has served in a wide variety of command and staff assignments, including Chief Staff Officer and Chief Engineer for Naval Information Warfare Activity and Commander of the National Security Agency, Central Security Service, Hawaii and Cunha. On the occasion of her appointment as Commander of the 10th Fleet, Lieutenant General Keith Alexander, former Director of the National Security Agency, described Admiral Tai as one of the best people that our military has across all of the services. We are very proud to have her as our special guest today. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Admiral Janet Tai.
Thank you, Jasmine. I'm sorry, Cadet 4. There we go. It is the United States Cyber Command, after all. That was a joke. To our World War II veterans, I salute you and thank you on behalf of the Navy, the Armed Forces, and a grateful nation. To all here who have served, whether in Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, or in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and various contingency operations, please accept my heartfelt thanks for your service to our great nation. Superintendent Lewis, Principal Decker, members of the Board of Education, fellow service members, fellow Americans, students, and veterans, thank you for inviting me to join you in a celebration today. Special thanks to Colonel Latham and all those who helped to make this possible, our JROTC program here in Ohio County. It's really remarkable to see so many people in uniform, and so thank you to the school and the school board and those that make this possible. So a round of applause for them. So this is a special day for me because, as you heard in my bio, I was born in Bowling Green and I grew up in South Florida. But every summer, what my bio doesn't say is that my parents, B.B. Duke and Jim Chin, are from Ohio County. And so every summer growing up in South Florida, we came home. And when they said we're going home, I knew what that meant. That meant coming home to Ohio County. And it's home because that's where our people are from, right? And you don't hear that almost anywhere else in the country. Where people are from Mayfield. My people are from Ohio County. And by people, of course, we mean blood relatives, but we mean, far beyond that. And so this feels like home to me. So it's the Dukes, and it's the Chins, and it's the Shepherds, and it's the Pattons, and it's the Great Houses, and the Porters, and the Smiths, and everybody who knows them or related to them. They are my people. Ohio County shaped my parents, who are both educators, and they in turn have shaped me. And so thank you, Ohio County. When I don the cloth of our nation, my uniform, my people become the entire United States. And it is such an honor to serve, and it's a privilege to carry on for those veterans who have served before me, and for all service members. An American military commander once wrote about his soldiers, and I quote, I pick up an accent the longer I'm here, by the way. I have no accent. I know you all don't have any accent whatsoever. I can hear it in my own voice. It cracks me up. Okay, I'm going to quote an American military commander. To see men and women without clothes to cover their nakedness, without blankets to lay on, without shoes by which their marches might be traced by the blood from their feet, marching through the frost and snow at Christmas, taking up their winter quarters without a house or a hut to cover them, and submitting to it without a murmur, is the mark of patience and obedience. which in my opinion can scarcely be paralleled. That was General George Washington writing to the Continental Congress from Valley Forge, New York in December of 1977. Our eventual first president was writing about the gallant, unbreakable, and often unknown American service members, warfighters who would become our country's veterans, and the devotion to which they have served from that time to this. I say that the veterans are often unknown, as we do not know most of their names, nor their life stories. But we do know them in the only way that we can, as our protectors, our brave men and women who have delivered our country and the world from evil many times over many generations. 200 years ago at this time, our nation was still fighting the War of 1812. It really wasn't that long ago when you think about it. 100 years ago, many nations were moving deeper into the First World War, which America would soon follow in 1917. And it was just 20 years after the conclusion of World War I, or the Great War as it was called, that the attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941, plunged us again into World War, with America fighting in 2 oceans and on several continents. Americans young and old were once again called upon for service and sacrifice. Through 4 bitter years, 13 million American men and women served America in the Second World War. Many were lost or wounded. Their buddies and shipmates who survived kept fighting and endured through to victory. To those veterans and families here today, I say again, thank you. And when those World War II veterans got home to the United States, out of their hard work, intelligence, and ingenuity, they built the greatest prosperity in human history. They fed, clothed, and helped to rebuild the societies of not only our allies, but also our former enemies. During the period after World War II and Korea, veterans and their fellow citizens made the United States the most free, the strongest, and the proudest nation on earth. They did all of this at home while having to fight yet another enemy of human freedom during our long struggle against Soviet communism. This led many brave service members to fight for our country's beliefs in Vietnam. From August 4th of 1964 through January 27th of 1973, over 8 million people served in the armed forces. Over 3 million of them were deployed into Southeast Asia. Of these, we lost almost 50,000 in battle-related deaths and other deaths inside of the theater. 153,000 were wounded, and there were 238 Medals of Honor awarded. The veterans of Valley Forge gave us our country. The veterans of America since then, for more than 2 centuries now, have preserved the country that was won in battle. They are the heroes who protect us all. Even now, American veterans on active duty serve our country all over the world. On the ground in Afghanistan, in the Western Hemisphere, Europe, Asia, and beyond, on every sea and ocean, Americans are on duty. Sailors, Marines, soldiers, airmen, and Coast Guardsmen, our service members and future veterans perform their service every day and night of every year on their sacred mission of service for peace and freedom. Where and when we need them, they are there. If you'll allow me for a moment to talk about the service that I have been in for the past 30 years, I'd like to talk about my shipmates on watch around the world, sailors who, as I speak, are protecting and defending America on the world's oceans. Navy ships, submarines, aircraft, and most importantly, tens of thousands of America's finest young men and women are deployed doing just that. They're there now. They will be there when we're sleeping tonight. They will be there every Saturday, Sunday, and holiday this year. They are there around the clock, whether far from our shores, or on watch ashore, or on watch in cyberspace, defending America at all times. That they are there is critically important, because as we have learned through our nation's great history, being there matters. Being there in business, it matters. It's why American firms maintain presence in overseas markets. Being there matters in diplomacy. It's why the State Department maintains embassies and ambassadors in nearly every nation on earth. Being there matters to our national defense as well. It is why U.S. soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines are stationed around the world, protecting America at all times. America's Navy protects on two fronts. First, we protect our national security through forward presence around the globe and by projecting our national power on the seas and in cyberspace and in the electromagnetic spectrum. We prevent and deter wars, and when necessary, we fight and win them. But we also preserve America's prosperity by protecting the U.S. economy. We just did it, that's what that was. Our economy fundamentally depends on unimpeded flow of commerce and information on and under the sea. More than 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. 80% of the world's population lives close to the coast, and 90% of all global trade volume travels by sea. The free flow of goods over the world's oceans is a national security issue, just as the free flow of information and commerce through cyberspace is. 1/4, that is 38 million of all U.S. jobs, are directly or indirectly related to global trade. 1/4 of manufacturing jobs depend on exports. 1/5 of all U.S. agricultural products by volume are sold in overseas markets. Your Navy team, operating forward, ensures this flow of goods remains unimpeded. America's Navy is uniquely positioned to do all this because the world's oceans give the Navy the power to protect America's interests anywhere and anytime. Being there matters. When America's national security is threatened by the existence of a weapons facility or a terrorist camp on the other side of the world, being there matters. Where these threats exist, chances are that Navy ships, submarine, aircraft, and special operation forces are close by, with the warfighting ability to destroy targets located hundreds of miles inland. When the decision is made to act on one of these threats, as during the ongoing fight against ISIL or ISIS, the solution involves launching fighter attack aircraft or unmanned aircraft from our aircraft carriers, firing cruise missiles from ships or submarines, or inserting a team of Navy SEALs to pull off the impossible mission against all odds. Of all the military services and service members, all of the military services and service members are out there protecting this great nation and stand on the shoulders of the great men and women, veterans, who led the way. The line of wars and battles, the unbreakable line of selfless service, reaches back to our war of independence and to the past 13 years and continues in Operation Inherent Resolve, our ongoing fight against ISIL. Honor, courage, commitment, duty, and country, that is the code and definition of American veterans. From our nation's birth to today, they have always kept the faith with us, their own people, for the cause that our leaders so often speak of that unites us all, the peace, security, and prosperity of America. Thank you to the veterans, and thank you for all of you for allowing me to share in this special day with you to honor our nation's veterans.
28, 1919, in the Palace of Versailles in France. However, fighting ceased 7 months earlier when an armistice, or temporary cessation of hostilities between Allied nations and Germany, went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. In November 1919, President Wilson proclaimed November 11th as the first commemoration of Armistice Day with the following words: "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service, with gratitude for the victory." In 1938, Congress passed an act that made the 11th of November in each year a legal holiday, a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace and to be thereafter celebrated and known as the Armistice Day. Armistice Day was primarily a day set aside to honor veterans of World War I. But in 1954, after World War II had required the greatest mobilization of soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen in the nation's history, and after American forces had fought aggression in Korea, Congress amended the Act of 1938 by striking out the word armistice and inserting in its place the word veterans. With the approval of this legislation on June 1st, 1954, November 11th became a day to honor American veterans of all wars. While there are no longer any surviving veterans of the First World War, we are very fortunate that a number of World War II veterans remain with us. The men and women who served overseas and at home during this war have become to know the greatest generation. It is difficult to imagine what our society today would be like if not for their courage, resourcefulness, and unwavering commitment to our ideals. We are very privileged to have representatives with us today, and I'd ask that our World War II veterans and the spouses of our World War II veterans stand or raise their hands to be recognized. We also like to take a moment to recognize those veterans who have served their nation on foreign soil since the end of the Second World War. At this time, I like all soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who served in the Korean War, Vietnam, Grenada, Panama, Iraq, Somalia, Bosnia, Kosovo, and Afghanistan, as well as the family members of any servicemen and women who are currently deployed to please stand and be recognized.
According to the Defense Department, we have over 83,000 servicemen and women unaccounted for or missing in action, 6 from the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, more than 1,600 from Vietnam, 126 from the Cold War period, almost 8,000 from the Korean War, and over 73,000 from World War II. We ask that everyone present now observe a moment of silence in remembrance of our brothers and sisters whose fate remains unknown, and we hope that they and their families know we'll continue to hold them in our hearts until everyone comes home. Again, a moment of silence, please. We'd now like to take an opportunity to recognize all veterans who have honored us with their presence here today. In a few moments, we will play the service medley, which is comprised of the songs of the Army, Marines, Navy, and Air Force. We ask that the veterans of each service stand when their song or hymn of of their respective service is played, and that with each group stands, we ask that all of our student body show their appreciation with a round of applause.
Thank you, folks. Before we play the service medley, though, I've got a couple of things I do want to talk about with you today. The first, I want to thank very much Admiral Ty for joining us today. A few of my friends who remained in after I retired have the privilege now to be flag officers, and I know that when they leave, their inbox doesn't stop filling up. There are actions that have to be completed by only them, and I know she'll have a great deal of work to do when she gets back to where she needs to be. And so I'd like to give her one quick round of applause again, and thank you very much for being here. A couple of other folks I want to acknowledge first. I had the great privilege of serving in uniform for 25 years, and I still wear it occasionally now. But I will tell you that the person who had the hardest job during that time period was not me, but it was my wife. Because when I was gone on a Thanksgiving or a Christmas or whatever, she was mom, she was dad, she was everything to my children. She did a pretty darn good job. So while I was out there playing, she was at home keeping those fires burning. So if we have spouses of veterans, please stand. I sent a note to my lovely wife today who asked me, says, "How's your day going?" She's making a little joke. I said, "Sweetheart, you're awesome, and you folks are all awesome too." Also, one last thing. When I joined the Army in 1985, I did so because I needed a job. We weren't at war with anybody then, and as a matter of fact, the only time we were going to go to war was with the Russians, and everybody was going to be fighting anyway, so it didn't matter. But we have a lot of young folks that join today at a time of persistent conflict, and those young people have my utmost respect. If we have any young people here who within the last 12 months have signed a contract and raised their right hand to serve their nation in one of our armed forces, please stand now. Queuing up now, Mr. Randy Brown. How many of you know Randy Brown? He had a we all know Mr. Brown, fine. He had a fantastic idea a couple of weeks ago, and we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of Ohio County High School. We're going to have our 50th graduating class this year. And he asked some of our veterans to send in photos for us to collect and put together in a montage. Now, we didn't get a whole lot. We got quite a few. But we need more. There's more people sitting in this audience than are going to be on the screen today. So I will ask that sometime when you guys get home, have a little time, find time to get us some photographs of you along with your years of service. And we want to make this a continuing tradition here during our Veterans Day ceremony. So we're going to take a couple of minutes and watch a little montage of some of our OCHS graduates who have served their nation. Mr. Laws, hit the lights, please.
In plain sight, where the streets are empty, that's where we run. Everyday people do everyday things, but I can't be one of them. I know you hear me now. We are a different kind. We can't do anything, but we could be heroes. Yeah. They don't see it cause they don't understand. Spin around and around for hours. You and me, we got the world in our hands. Everyday people do everyday things, but I can't be one of them. I know you hear me now. We are a different kind. We can't do anything. We could be heroes. We could be heroes, me and you. We could be heroes. We could be heroes, me and you. Yeah, we could be. Yeah, we could be. All we're looking for is love and a little light, love and a little light. All we're looking for is love and a little light, love and a little light. We could be heroes. We could be heroes, me and you. We could be.
We need your pictures. As Kalani mentioned earlier on, the OCHS Symphonic Band is going to play for us the service medley. We ask that as the hymn or song of your service is played that you stand, so we can thank you again with one last round of applause. Now, due to circumstances beyond my control, the U.S. Coast Guard is no longer under the Department of Defense. So, if we have any Coast Guard members, Coast Guard veterans today, you can stand whenever you want to. Matter of fact, you can stand up the whole time. So, ladies and gentlemen, the OCHS Symphonic Band with a service medley. The U.S. Navy. The Army. The Air Force. I apologize to the Marine Corps, I got caught up in the music, but you know your song, I know. Again, our veterans, again, thanks very much for coming today. It's not only that we need to thank you. And we appreciate you being here today, not to receive thanks, but to give us the opportunity to thank you. So again, thank you very much for being with us today. One last round of applause for our civil veterans today. Okay, folks, it's herding cats time.